Priya ma'am, screen is clear?
Now, yes, sir.
Yes.
Clear.
Chalo, chalo. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So let
Section
us
2.
see.
Shall I start? Section 2. An accident is an exteriorization of a thought. Purpose of an accident. Explanation of an accident and accidents in history. An accident is an event which happens to one or more persons or things unexpectedly, without being foreseen and without intention. Therefore, the accident stands out from the general and foreseen order of events as unusual or separate. A so-called accident is, like any other event on the physical plane, a thought in a certain part of its course. Stop or continue?
Continue.
A thought is a being created by the conscious light and desire. So just can somebody take over for 5 minutes?
हाँ ठीक है. Kanchan, or I will take over. Chal.
A thought is a being created by a conscious life and desire, and which, when issued, has in it an aim, a potential design, and a balancing factor, which balancing factor, like the needle of a compass, points to the final balance of the thought as a whole. The thought endures until the balancing factor has brought about an adjustment through the one who issued the thought. The balancing factor causes exteriorization as long as the thought endures. Whenever the thought, moving in its courses, approaches the physical plane, it causes the one who issued it to be in place for an exteriorization of that thought. An
So,
exteriorization.
एक minute. I think we discussed this last time also, right? Yeah, we discussed this. Yeah. ठीक है. So the thought endures until the yeah, someone said something.
I was just going to read.
The thought endures until balancing factor has brought about an adjustment through the one who issued the thought. The balancing factor causes exteriorization as long as the thought endures. As long as we supply energy. Whenever the thought moves in its course, approaches the physical plane, it causes the one who issued to be in place. Because for exteriorization, you require place, timing, and which is the third factor?
Condition.
Condition. So let's go. Next. Yeah.
An exteriorization can happen only when there is a juncture of time, condition, and place. The laws which control the exteriorization do not always fit in with the intention and expectation of the persons concerned, and the exteriorization is then called an accident. An accident is a perceived physical part of a thought, which is proceeding on its otherwise invisible course. The exteriorization makes visible that part of the thought which touches the physical plane and is not yet balanced. The demonstration is made on or through the person who is concerned in the accident. Accidents such as personal injury or a burn, being struck by the lightning, or an occurrence which prevents one from embarking on a ship that is to be wrecked, some only to those whose thoughts are thereby partially exteriorized to them. An accident presents to the one to whom it happens something of his past, either distant or recent. The accident is a part of one of his own thoughts that he has not balanced and which will endure and from time to time meet him face to face as a physical event until he has paid or received payment through the direct exteriorization of the designs learned.
Exit. Ask a mouse. I thought I still had the table. The accident is a part of
Accident
one
is
of.
a part of one of his own thoughts that he has not balanced and which will endure and from time to time meet him face to face as a physical event until he has paid or received payment through the direct exteriorization of the designs, learns his lesson from that child of his mind and desire, and has satisfied his consciousness, contrite. Often accidents come to injure him, often to help him, and sometimes as protection.
सर
The
इसको
reason
सिंप्लीफाई वे में कैसे समझाएं?
Last time वो lecture में है, actually we had a detailed discussion on this.
अच्छा ठीक है, ठीक है.
ये इसके बारे में मैम ने एक एग्जांपल दिया था ना, प्रिया मैम ने, वो अपने बच्चे के लिए जाती थी, you know, she used to stand for the bus to come. That day she did not because she had a phone call and वो लाइट के नीचे खड़ी होती तो that light also, you know, fell down. That was the incident you're talking about, sir.
Yeah.
The reason why events happen to him in the form of an accident is an exceptional, unforeseen manner, or that a man would not do certain things to himself, like breaking an arm, or that circumstances do not call for a commission of a crime against him, that is, an intentional injury. Or finally, that the happening accidentally is the easiest and most direct way to bring about the juncture of time, condition, and place for the extradition.
एक मिनट याद करना. See, the reason why events happen to him in the form of accidents in an exceptional, unforeseen manner are that a man would not do certain things to himself, like breaking an arm, or that circumstances do not call for a commission of a crime against him, that is, an intentional injury, or finally, that the happening accidentally is the easiest and most direct way to bring about the juncture of time. Okay, that means there is some past thought that is still there.
Which we are not
And-
balanced it.
Correct. So we are not balanced, and that balancing act, we would not issue an order in which we break our own leg and something like that.
Yes.
So that is the exterior. And all the three parameters meet. ये तो बिल्कुल अपना मोबाइल फोन का जीपीएस सिस्टम जैसा हो गया.
Yes.
ट्रायंगुलेशन हो गया तो लोकेशन पता चल गया, वहां पे लग गया.
Further, there is in the there is in the happening of an accident a special call for attention. An accident, rather than an ordinary event, produces this because the accident is unlooked for startling.
Further, there is in the happening of an incident a special call for attention. An accident, rather than an ordinary event, produces this because the accident is unlooked for, or the accident is startling. It is sudden.
An accident is brought about in the ordinary course of the law of thought and destiny. Every man has a vast number of thoughts cycling in his mental atmosphere toward and away from externalization on the physical plane. The thoughts
We will read that again. An accident is brought about in the ordinary course of the law of thought as destiny. Every man has a vast number of thoughts cycling in his mental atmosphere toward and away from exteriorization on the physical plane. Okay, this is his, he is putting the word imagination and wild imagination together. The thoughts live on with a tendency to exteriorization in the events, which the balancing factor in each of them requires and projects. So, is a meaning that some of our thoughts could be those that could have been from the past and meets a particular slot, the time frame, the condition and all, it meets the particular requirement. It so happens that we are at the wrong place at the wrong time and we are the victim of it. Is that a possibility?
Yes, sir.
Sir, what's your view? That's the way I am understanding that.
Can you just repeat that question again, please?
No. See, the question is what is there in that book? I'm asking a question out of that. What he says is an accident is brought about in the ordinary course of law of thought as destiny. Every man has a vast number of thoughts cycling in his mental atmosphere towards and away from exteriorization on the physical plane. That means wild thoughts that keep coming. अरे ऐसा मेरे को हो गया तो क्या होता? I think like that. The thoughts live on with a tendency to exteriorize in the events which the balancing factor in each of them requires and projects. So my question is, does it mean that we may be thinking casually, but we happen to be at the junction of the GPS, the triangulation, और time आ गया, वो condition आ गया, और presence भी है. So can we consider that also as a possibility?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Means
हाँ.
you
Yeah,
have to put
Swarna,
a
your
feeling.
question.
You have to put a feeling towards it, right, sir? But even
No, not necessary.
you may not.
See, here, the moment, see what happens, somewhere in one of Joe Dispenza's lecture, he says, every 7 seconds, our thoughts go out and new information comes in. Correct?
Yeah.
I don't know which book. He very clearly mentions that. I think it is in Changing the Habits of Being Yourself.
Breaking the habit of being yourself.
Correct. Breaking the habit of being yourself. So every 7 seconds, we go in and we go out and come back. If we change the information, fine. Otherwise, the same information goes, same comes back. That is how probably extra energy is getting added. But once you have released a thought, it means it is a bullet that you have released. Whether it will hit the mark or not, there are 2 more coordinates that I have to fulfill. गलती से वो वहां पे है तो लग गया. You agree, sir?
Yes, absolutely.
Correct. So now this brings us to a very tricky situation. That means when we are releasing a thought, we have to be all the more careful. Right? So, I mean, let us take that understanding.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other point to be raised on this? I thought
No, I
Anup
just
was there. Was Anup there?
Yeah, he left.
Okay.
I think they're all with that thing, Pyramid Valley today. That
Maybe. Quite possible.
They're all retired with that. If I was also supposed to have gone, but I did decide against it. Let's see. Okay. The crowd is too much.
You stayed at Bangalore only?
I'm in Bangalore.
Yeah.
I'm from Bangalore.
Yeah. So let us proceed. Priya ma'am, you are back.
Yes, sir. Just 2 more minutes. I'll
Yeah.
finish off that paragraph. I'll come back.
Okay. Yeah, let us move forward.
The thoughts begin and continue their cycles from time a person issues them. Whenever they approach the physical plane, they seek to exteriorize, but they are often held back by the exteriorization of his present design. When there is an opportunity, be it ever so slight, the whole nature of the man seizes upon it and uses it to precipitate an event which will bring about one of these exteriorations. Every thought, once it is issued, endures and appears cyclically exteriorized as a physical event. For that purpose, the one who issued the thought calls mentally or physically on other person concerned with the thought through their atmosphere. If a cycle of one of those persons' thought coincides with the cycle of one of his own, this will produce unintentionally to the first one the event which is called an accident. So your
So let us
words,
read that again.
yeah. The thought begins.
One sec. मैं पढ़ता हूँ इस पर.
Okay.
The thoughts begin and continue their cycles from the time a person issues them. Whenever they approach the physical plane, they seek to exteriorize, but they are often held back by the exteriorizations of his present design. Which means, like he was telling us somewhere, right? A thought happens to have three things.
Condition,
An
place,
aim.
and plan.
No. An aim, something else, right? Where is that?
So section 2 में आपने ये बोला ना, the juncture of time, condition and place.
No, not this. There was another, he talks about a thought having three parameters. I'm not able to locate that. He talks about three things. Is it the same one that you are referring to? Let me just check. Where is
That was the first paragraph of last section.
Somewhere he talks about that. That's what I recollect.
In the first para it comes, first or second para comes, the last line of that para.
No, aim a designing factor and something else. That's
Aim.
Design factor and something else. I forget what it is. So those are three parameters of a thought. It has got aim. It has also got a design factor.
It is here. A thought is a
balancing factor.
being created by the conscious light and desire, which when issued, it has an aim, a potential design, and a balancing factor.
Correct.
Which balancing factor, like the needle of a compass, points to the final balance of the thought as a whole. Yes. That is the one, yes. Yes, that is the point. अरे बाप रे, ये कभी ये भी कहना नहीं सुनते. So
नीचे. Come down. Yeah.
और भी नीचे.
No. This is.
No.
Go ahead. Third page.
The thoughts begin and what the hell is happening today? Keyboard की क्या जरूरत है? Side में रख दो. Mouse का. The thoughts begin and continue their cycles from the time a person issues them. Whenever they approach the physical plane, they seek to exteriorize. That means बीच में एक picture आ गया तो उसके ऊपर impression गिर गया. That becomes the design. Now the other two parameters are
design. No, other part design and.
नहीं डिजाइन तो आ गया ना सर. एक एम नहीं है, बैलेंसिंग फैक्टर नहीं है.
Balancing factor is not there. Yes.
Right. So the moment it hits a physical plane, मतलब impression create हो गया. That means the potential design is having a plane on which it can project. We need to take care of that. They seek to exteriorize, but they are often held back by the exteriorization of his present design. That means my present design I can avoid, right? By means of my present design, you are asking that question, Kanchan. No, Swarna, right? So by my present design, I can avoid it.
See, the present design is because of another thought is cycling. That is cycling. You must remember.
Correct, but I can also avoid it, right?
That's right. That's
I
right.
can
You
use
avoid
it.
because what is present design is the expression of another thought is already running. That's how you can prevent.
Correct. And if this one exteriorizes and that one becomes party to this, then that has got nullified.
Right.
That is the way we can come out of it, Swarna.
Yeah, sir. So just to give a
Now, one thought comes in, some plane has come in, but my school of thought at the current moment is diverting. So resultant नहीं आएगा,
yeah.
ये उसको supersede
Divert.
कर जाएगा.
Correct. Yeah, that's why they say, right, sir. If any negative thought comes, then give a positive thought. The same positive thought.
But it all depends. By the time you give your positive thought, if that fellow has already reached and there is a coincidence of the aim and purpose, खत्म हो गया वो.
Right. Yeah.
Manifest हो
That's
जाएगा.
why if you are in that
See,
path already, that dominates. Otherwise,
Sir.
it will not.
Yeah.
So there's also another way of look at an additional issue about here is we talk about you are destined, right, to karma, but how you can manage that karma. You can.
You
I
can.
won't use the word partner. That is how. This is the way it happens.
So that means it needs all three. Sir, the karma is nothing but a past thought. It's an issued
Absolutely.
thought.
Exactly.
It's a thought that has been issued. I am not bringing in the time factor because this fellow doesn't have time factor in this manifestation. You just see this exteriorization. He has got a potential design. He has got an aim. Right? And the third one I keep forgetting.
This is the thing. The aim, the design, and the sorry again.
Circumstances, eh?
No, not circumstances.
Design,
Purpose.
pattern design.
Purpose.
No. Aim, design, and oh God,
balancing factor.
Balancing factor.
Balancing factor, most important. Yes, critical.
Correct.
The balance factor is critical factor. Yes.
Sir, but balancing is again is not balancing related to our prior thought.
No.
Balancing is not related to prior thought. I thought it is, sir. What are we balancing?
See, what is happening? What is this balancing happen? There's a thought process over there, right? And you take an example. Okay, you have committed some sin. Okay, and the balancing factor is you need to counter that, right?
Correct.
That's the balancing factor. Okay. So it need not necessarily have a time factor in this. It could be momentary also.
Correct.
Right? That's what it is.
No, but my question is, the moment I have issued a thought, it has to be balanced out. So that is also party to this, right? It is subject to this. Whether it has manifested or not, it is an issued thought. If my current situation balances the earlier issued thought, lag gaya mera.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
So it's a very tricky situation. Yeah. Right.
तो समझ नहीं आया.
नहीं अभी देखो यार, एक थॉट मैंने छोड़ा, ठीक है? थॉट क्या है? चलो यार, आज किसी को मारते हैं, ठीक है? मैंने एक थॉट छोड़ा, किसी को मारते हैं. मारने वाला थॉट आया, वो बेचारा उधर ही खड़ा है जहां पे मार खाने के लिए हम सब पहुंचते हैं मारने के लिए, वो भी उधर है। तो आपका 3 पैरामीटर्स आ गया ना, एक एम है, उसका भी थॉट होगा, अरे मैंने ऐसा गलती किया है, तो उसका थॉट भी बैलेंस होने का है, हमारा थॉट भी बैलेंस होने का है। करेक्ट मिश्रा जी?
correct.
करेक्ट।
हम्म,
अभी दो थॉट है, काउंटर, ये दोनों बैलेंस हो जाएगा ये एक्शन के साथ, एंड द ऑब्जेक्टिव इज वेरी सिमिलर, दैट मीन्स देयर इज अ पैटर्न मैच। वो 80% है, 100% है, वो बाद में होगा, लेकिन एक्शन हो जाएगा, because he doesn't talk about a perfect balance. He is not talking about a perfect balance. This is just a hypothetical case. So you need an aim, you need a pattern, and you need a balancing factor. Balancing factor can be current school of thought. It could be a thought that has been issued. It could be an effect of a thought that has got manifested. It could be any of those. So it is not necessarily just a thought. It could also be some action that has taken place, which is a result of some other thought. It could also be that, sir.
Yes, yes, you're right.
Huh? So it can be any form. वो matching हो गया तो खत्म.
See, he's very careful. He never tells what thought or what kind of thought. That's why
Correct.
he's been very careful. Right.
No, it is very generic, but it is going to happen is what we need to be careful about.
Yes.
Yeah. Chalo. Further.
Page number 4.
Huh?
Page number 4.
Ah.
Come down.
Correct. Another manner
In which the accidents are brought about is by elementals, nature units. They follow and are bound by man's thought and rush it into his body as an impulse, so that he unexpectedly performs an act which results in an accident to him. He may, for instance, cut himself or may fall in front of a fast-moving car. Another way in which elementals may act to precipitate a thought is by producing an occurrence without human intervention, as where fire burns a man, or a cinder gets into his eye, or melting ice drops on him from a roof, or he finds articles of value. In every instance, his own thought seeking externalization is the means of precipitating upon him the event which he calls an accident.
Correct. So another manner in which accidents are brought about is by elementals. Elementals are the fundamentals.
Yeah.
The fundamentals are which are nothing but the nature units. They follow and are bound by man's thought, obviously, and rush with it into his body, which is the elemental, the nature units rush into our body as an impulse, so that he unexpectedly performs an act which results in an accident to him, which means again wo तीनों आ गया ना, balancing factor, though that is the fundamental parameter that we need to be very careful. He may, for instance, cut himself, okay, or may fall in front of a fast moving car. Another way in which elementals may act to precipitate a thought is by producing an occurrence without human intervention. Lekin, what is the need for a human intervention here? It is no more required. वो thought छोड़ दिया है, circumstance match हो गया, वो तो हो ही जाएगा. It goes back to say that this is another scenario of which the same thing happens.
The feeling, intention उसने नहीं डाला, feelings नहीं डाली है, तो वो नहीं होगा ना.
ये फीलिंग, वो मैडम अभी मैनिफेस्टेशन का लैंग्वेज मत लेके आओ. आप मैनिफेस्टेशन को क्यों ला रहे हो? इन्हें एक्सीडेंट होने के लिए 3 चीज चाहिए.
Aim.
एक पैटर्न चाहिए,
Yes.
राइट? एक aim चाहिए.
Balancing
This is
factor.
why they keep saying universe wants to give you. श्रेयांश डागा पे मैनिफेस्टेशन की बात जब करता है यूनिवर्स वांट्स टू गिव यू बोलता है. और आप संभाल के पूछिए जो पूछ रहे हो, क्योंकि एक बार वो फ्रीक्वेंसी मैच हो गया, वो कंडीशन मैच हो गया और आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव मैच हो गया तो आपको होना ही है. एनी पॉइंट टू ऐड देयर सर?
Here, to my mind, there is another factor. See, when he says another way of accident happens, an elemental, what he means is in other cases there is also a balancing of the another somebody else's thought. In this
that's
case,
also
other
possible.
thought, and in this particular case, other thoughts need not. It's only your own thought which is this.
No, it's not your thought, sir. He is talking about elementals and nature units. Now, nature unit is a formation by virtue of everybody's thought, anybody's thought.
But when he's see in normal accident, what happens is, while I agree with you, everybody's thought, there are specific thoughts and your thoughts. Those aims have to balance and meet at a time and condition. Here,
Correct.
the nature element exists in there, and it is your thoughts that go and create this situation.
Is it that then it is not an accident? No?
It is. No, I'm not talking in terms of manifestation. When I say your thought is again unknownly is floating around, okay, and then it picks up from this nature element, this thoughts that are there. Not like I had a thought, you had a thought, okay, you made it something to me, I'm seeking justice, you had a thought. That is what you said, that other example, right?
That is the other example. This is by virtue of nature.
Yeah,
The nature unit may.
Where your thought goes and then balances. That's what I'm
saying. Right. So here in the second case, it doesn't matter whose thought it is.
Yes.
Actually, the other way is it can be somebody's thought left behind yesterday. It could be a legacy I get. आज का legacy हो गया वो. Legacy मेरे को आ गया.
Possible.
That's also possible. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Another way in which, so now this is the one. In every instant, his own thought, seeking exteriorization is the means of, sir, you're right. So in addition to that being somebody's thought, your thought also has to go and ask for it.
Yes.
So that means it works like this. Like Shreyansh Daga keeps saying, everything is readily available elsewhere. Your frequency matches, your circumstance matches, right? And your thought energy and feeling energy. Thought energy देके matching the connection के establish कर लिया है. Feeling energy से आप attract कर रहे हो, तो भी आ जाएगा. नहीं है तो भी आ जाएगा.
इधर यहाँ पे फीलिंग एनर्जी को है ना, हम इसमें और भी डिवाइड कर सकते हैं. मे बी आप डर रहे हो, दैट इमोशन इज देयर विथ यू, ओके, सो दैट वुड आल्सो
आपका डर भी जा रहा है किसी. कंचन, योर पॉइंट इज वेरी वैलिड. ओनली माइनर चेंज इन दैट इज आपने वो डर के बारे में सोचा तो वो हो गया कनेक्शन एस्टेब्लिश.
एग्जैक्टली. So that feeling is about your fear, that fear of feeling, okay? Then if your feeling
it is not the feeling, it is the thought. Thought is it is a vicious circle actually. Feeling is something your soul will feel. It could be a result of the desire, but both these will drive and influence the thought.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the exteriorization, it is always the thought. Feeling, desire, ये सब अंदर बैठा हुआ है.
तो
दोनों को बैलेंस करोगे तभी आपको thought control में आएगा.
So there was a sentence now, you may go in front of the car. Okay.
You may see, that is all manifestation. वो आपने कभी सोचा है, this is a elemental force that is happening.
Yeah.
See, the phenomena exists. Like they were recently showing a video somewhere. A fellow is in the railway station, There is a train passing by. There is a syndrome by which he gets attracted and falls below the train.
Yeah.
वो खड़ा हुआ है सर प्लेटफॉर्म पे, train is passing by, a goods train. Suddenly he is just drawn by the force and then he falls into it. But they have not shown whether he is alive after that or he is not. But they were giving a scientific explanation for that phenomena.
In a slightly lighter way, in this particular example of this elemental thing, you say cut yourself or do something. You see what? Suppose you cut yourself, what do? You curse yourself.
Correct.
Right? So you thought it. So without realizing, you curse yourself, right? What the heck did I do? Why did I do this?
And interestingly, such cuts normally manifest. बड़ा वाला knife देखा, ये कुछ नया है.
Right. Yes.
This is very practical. You are very right, actually.
Right.
No, I didn't get what is the point you're trying to say by saying that we curse ourselves.
नहीं, when you say, आप क्या करते हो? गलती से हाथ कट गया, तो फर्स्ट रिएक्शन क्या रहता है?
Curse yourself.
That is what he is referring to. That is also a thought. Be careful.
Okay, like that.
That is one side of it. The other side of it, that interestingly manifests because you might have taken out a new knife. और अभी तो सोचा कि कटेगा करके और कट गया.
Yeah, it might be a result of that thought also.
That's what we are saying. ठीक है. So you want to take over?
Yes, sir, I can.
Yeah, the purpose से आपका हो गया.
Who dropped
Yeah.
out again?
Sorry?
Somebody dropped.
Bhatia. Jasprit Bhatt.
Okay.
Yeah, she had said they should be attending now.
Yeah.
She had mentioned it.
So let's proceed.
Yes, sir. The purpose of an accident is to call one's attention to the thought of which it is one of the exteriorizations. One to whom an accident happens can always, by searching, find out something about that. Though the event may not reveal the whole past to him, it may reveal that portion of the past which is necessary for him to know. If he tries to understand, he will learn, and he will learn more if he is willing to pay. He must pay anyway. What he learns will bring him nearer to the adjustment. Continue.
This is plain simple.
Suppose two men are traveling in a mountainous country. By placing his foot on an insecure stone, one of them slips and falls into a ravine. His companion goes to the rescue, finds the mangled body below among rocks, and close at hand he discovers, cropping out from the side of a ravine, a vein of gold. The death of the one impoverishes his family and causes failure to some with whom he was in business. Because of that fall, the others discover an ore deposit which becomes a source of wealth. Such an occurrence is said to be an accident, bringing death to one, sorrow and poverty to some, failure to others, and good luck to the comrade whose wealth is gained by chance. There is no accident or chance connected with such occurrences. Each of the events is in accordance with the working out of the law as destiny, and is an exteriorization of some thought issued by the person affected, though beyond the limits of perception. There is no accident or chance connected with such occurrences. Each of the events is in accordance with the working out of the law as destiny, and is an exteriorization of some thought issued by the person affected, though beyond the limits of perception. Okay.
See,
the one who was
basically he is paying. He's either paying back or paying now. So the one who is going to walk away with the wealth is also a person who is getting balanced. It is an adjustment that is taking place.
The one who was killed was
Yeah. The one who was killed.
The one who was killed was a man whose allotted time had run its course, though his death could have occurred a little sooner or might have been postponed for a short time. The manner of his death had been predetermined to be sudden. Further, it was necessary, on account of his family and his business connections, that his relations to them be severed abruptly. Therefore, he suffered sudden death. Whether the poverty
Right.
awakens.
See, again, if you really analyze, there are only 3 pointers to be as takeaway. Right? मेरे को तो यही नजर आ रहा है. One, there is a balancing factor. Correct? See, in this, we can say that
Is
There
it
is a-
dropped? Don't inform me.
there is a balancing factor, there is an aim, and there is a
Precious time.
there is a potential desire. तो ये तीनों किसी भी डायरेक्शन से मैच हो गए तो आपका इवेंट हो जाएगा.
No.
Sir, would adjustment occurring also be part of the event or design?
It has to be, right? Because when it's
Yeah.
balancing, what it's trying to do is adjust.
The
So
adjust
there are
is-
only 3 things
Adjusting
that we
and
have to
balancing
recollect.
go together, sir. Adjusting and balancing will be going together, basically. I mean,
It could be, it
But it
can
may
be.
not adjust completely. It need not
Correct,
adjust
it may
completely.
be partial.
Partial, yes.
So ठीक है, ये तो clear हो गया.
continue.
हाँ.
Whether the poverty awakens self-reliance in those who have been dependent on the, you have to scroll, sir.
One second. Yes. This is an important.
Yeah, dependent on the disease, and brings out traits which could not be seen while they were dependent on another, or whether they become disheartened, give up to despair, or become paupers, rests largely upon the past of those concerned. Whether the one who discovers the gold improves the opportunity of wealth to be honest, to better the conditions of himself and others, to relieve suffering, or to support educational work, or whether, on the other hand, he does none of these, but uses his wealth and power which it gives him for the oppression of others, or whether he becomes morally corrupt and urges others to live in to lives of dissipation, is all according to the law of thought, and has been largely determined by previous thoughts of those concerned.
एक मिनट, यहाँ पे एक चीज मेरे को, see, whether the one who discovers the gold improves the opportunity of wealth, improves the opportunity of wealth to be honest, to better the conditions of himself and others, to relieve suffering, or to support educational work, or whether, on the other hand, he does none of these, but uses his wealth and power which it gives him for the oppression of others, or whether he becomes morally corrupt and urges others to lives of dissipation, is all according to the law of thought and has been largely determined by the thoughts of those concerned. That means again a balancing factor. Only thing that is not standing out in this particular sentence, what time, see, if I take purpose of life as a parameter, our purpose of life is betterment of ourselves and also betterment of the society around us. If I fail in doing that, right? If I fail in doing, because there is an element of service, or education, vagara, he has added. If I fail in doing it, it might be in accordance with some earlier thoughts of all the people concerned, but my actions, how are they going to impact me in the future? That is not standing out there. All the rest of it is plain, simple, clear. But what happens if I am not doing anything? It may be balancing, but beyond a point, what happens?
So are you suggesting responsibility is not brought out in this?
Correct.
Right? Okay.
See, the impact of my action. Probably what it means is it is going to continue. That will become part of my thoughts, my action. That will become part of my thoughts, my action in the current domain, which may become part of my baggage. That is how it could influence. But it is not necessary, because here his focus is about the action, the accident alone. Probably that is why he is limiting it to that.
Yes.
But they will also be part of the thought. There could be others thought who are oppressed, where my energies, even though it is a result of their past, there is going to be a counter effect of that. So, okay, that is also going to be part of the thoughts that are still pending, maybe not getting consumed.
So you must realize that oppression that we suffer is something we might have inviting because of the thought.
No, he might have invited, but
Yes.
it has come through me. But will I also carry the balancing effect later on?
Yeah, it depends on the other thoughts. Depends on the other thoughts. Correct.
So I think that is why they say karma, if I give you 100 rupees and I expect the 100 rupees back, then there is a give and take equation established. If I don't expect it back, then it is a service. So my mental thought again has got a relationship to that. Yeah, now I am able to relate.
Yes.
This is good. Yeah. Chaliye ma'am.
If the deceased had been more careful in the selection of his path, he might not have fallen, though his death, as it was required by the law, would merely have been postponed a short time. If his companion had not descended the perilous path in the hope of rendering assistance, he would not have found the means by which he acquired his wealth. Yet, even if fear should have kept him from going to the aid of his comrade, he would have only deferred his prosperity, because wealth was to be his as the result of his past thoughts and works. By not letting pass an opportunity which duty presented, he hastened his prosperity. Okay, yeah. It is injurious to speak of an accident and chance as events happening without cause and irrespective of law. Such unthinking use of the words fosters in people the belief that they may act or fail to act and not be held accountable. They come to believe that things may happen to them without cause, so they may dull their moral conceptions. They limit their views and reasoning to things on the physical plane. They trust to chance and are liable to become irresponsible. Events which
Beautifully
affect
stated.
yeah, yes.
Which means it can happen today, it can happen tomorrow. You are accountable one way or the other, and it is not right to speak of it as an accident. Or it is also not right to speak that I am always lucky. That is the message. Is there any other hidden message?
No. See, this in this paragraph, okay, he doesn't talk about it, but he keep this paragraph in mind when they come to the next chapter or the next section, right? So
But
this is where I say, because we believe this we say this all, we don't say it is responsible, we say accident. We leave it to accident, it by chance, etc. And this is what leads to surrendering to something. This is not a, the concept of God will come. So you
that
remember
is
this paragraph.
nature's way of getting back at us. Whether it
Yes,
is on
yes.
the good side or bad side.
Yes. You should remember this paragraph because we're going to come back to it later.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
No, I am able to say what I am saying because this is what we learn in spiritual tablets.
Right.
See, here it is thought. There it becomes the power of the thought showing its result. So suppose you are sick. By thought alone, you can divert all your energy to cure yourself. And here, we may think that it has happened by accident, but there is a reason behind it. That is how I am connecting the two.
And if you don't understand, that's where you start talking about God and then fate and things like that. Which is what we come to later on.
वो religion को लेके आते हैं पीछे.
वही तो. Right. Correct.
Yeah. So they limit their views and reasoning to things on the physical plane, materialistic. They trust to chance and are liable to become irresponsible. Okay.
Continue.
Yeah.
Events which affect a few or many, or a race or a continent, or the whole world, arrive to those whom they benefit or afflict according to the working of the law of thought as destiny. I'll read that again. Events which affect a few or many, or a race or a continent, or the whole world, arrive to those whom they benefit or afflict according to the working of the law of thought as destiny.
Means how the group has been thinking and how their actions have been. अभी देखो कश्मीर में क्या हो रहा है. See, if we take Kashmir, today it has done its full cycle and things are getting restored back. In the sense that the people were driven out of there. That is now changing. That means all these people, they have exhausted their thought from the negative side. And today, these people who have suffered are getting it back. It's a cyclic nature. Is there any point to take that other than this thought?
This paragraph is very clear. I don't think.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah. To each individual are exteriorized some of his past thoughts. The thoughts press for an opening for exteriorization. If there are many people whose thoughts tend towards a similar event, they are gathered even from the ends of the earth to bring about the so-called accidents. To everyone comes the advantage or loss that exteriorizes some of his past thoughts. Accidents which happen to a community, like a conflagration, cyclone, inundation or pestilence. What is pestilence?
Pestilence is disease.
Disease, okay. Yeah. Are likewise the exteriorizations of thoughts of
pestilence is like that air flu.
Okay.
No, pestilence is
avian flu एक आया था ना उस टाइप का.
हाँ, कोई disease वगैरह.
Any kind of disease.
Okay. So accidents which happen to a community like conflagration, cyclone, inundation, or pestilence are likewise the exteriorizations of thoughts of those affected. Under this head fall also the destruction of hamlets and cities, and the devastation of countries like the ruthless razing of Carthage, the sacking of Rome, the plundering of the Spanish settlements by the buccaneers, or the conquest of Peru. In these cases, the just suffer with the unjust. The unjust are the evil ones in the present. The just are the unrighteous of the past. Such destinies have been made by the action and inaction, the participation and the indifference of the inhabitants in times such as those of the persecution of the, how do you pronounce this?
Huguenots.
Huguenots. Okay. Persecution of the Huguenots or of the Netherlands by Alva or the or of the Quakers by the sorry.
Or of the Quakers by the Puritans of New England.
In New England. They will be brought together in the course of time, and their thoughts will lead them to the place and time of that exteriorization of those past thoughts. That place may be the same locality, or the people may be brought together in another, and there live in prosperity or in trouble, and share in the accidents of the final disaster. I'll continue.
So, ये हो गया Kashmir fights. The last para is Kashmir fights. Right,
मुझे तो
sir?
लगता है sir, we can consider the decrease in the impact of corona. The fear which was there has decreased by the thoughts of being well by all the people. They have become fearless.
That
if you
could
look
be,
at
but
That's slightly different.
if you look at the
yeah, थोड़ा अलग है ना ये.
That's like a cycle. I mean, one leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other.
Correct. नहीं, यहाँ पे this is more like, see, they will be brought together in course of time, and their thoughts will lead them to the place and time of the exteriorization of those past thoughts. This is where I was talking about, because he's talking with relationship to the various revolutions and commotions.
Yes.
Right? So that place may be the same locality, or the people may be brought together in another, and there live in prosperity or in trouble and share in the accidents of the final disaster. So this is more to do with something like our Kashmir files only, because locality सब कुछ आ रहा है. अगर नहीं हुआ तो they would come somewhere else and there they would settle down happily. All of them, the entire community is talking about. Clear, na?
Yes. Yes, sir. The reckoning may be held up for a long time, but it is sure to come. The United States of America was set apart by intelligences to try out self-government by the multitude. And so they have been led to success in their various wars, their political institutions and their scrolling.
The reckoning may be held up for a long time,
but it is sure
to come. The United States of America was set apart by intelligences to try out self-government by the multitude. And so they have been led to success in their various wars, their political institutions. Interesting. This is a very interesting connotation, because America does not have the native population in this exercise at all.
Yes, yes, they're all people who came and
See,
settled.
it is a country of migration. The only people who are there, they are scattered here and there, a few Red Indians. Right, वहाँ पे there are some areas near New Jersey and all, where far off hill you have some Indians still there.
Reservations, yeah.
Yeah, reservations.
Reservations.
Correct. See, mark this, huh? The United States of America was set apart by intelligences to try out self-government by the multitude. What is this intelligences? It is the triune selves who are beyond the realm of permanence. Just make a note of that.
See, I would like to add here, if you read how the Constitution of the United States is formed, there's a beautiful book. At any stage, there are people who are very morally highly bound. So there are many issues that came up and said, why not this? They said, because it's not morally correct. And so the entire Constitution US were written not on based any rules, but many of the issues, conflicts, for example, small state and large state, like Pennsylvania was Kentucky and things like that. What the thought was, Benjamin Franklin was there, for example, including George Washington and all this, and William Penn. All these people, what they did was they said, no, this is not morally correct. And that is what this talks of. There's a group of people that brought about this. The entire Constitution was drawn
Otherwise,
by moral.
Sir, the moment they miss out on that morals, there is an imbalance coming in. Intelligences may, yeah.
Which is what is happening today. If you see today the way they were, because those moral factors which bound their constitution are being forgotten.
I think experimentally those intelligences will now move it to India because there's a lot of spirituality in India.
Hope so. We don't know. We can't say. We don't know what thoughts are there elsewhere.
Correct.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
But see,
Actually,
we were
it's
in that
increasing all
situation
over the
once
world.
upon a
Sir.
time. Sir, actually, if we go to the past, we were in that situation.
Absolutely. Right.
We were in that situation. Then we got oppressed. We got suppressed.
Right.
Right? All those thoughts are today
And then, no,
in the
one
form
more.
of Modi, maybe.
Oppressed,
See,
suppressed,
periodically,
and
with
impressed also.
PV
Now more
Narasimha Rao opening up the markets and all, slowly, probably the change started manifesting. Yeah, Priyaji, you are saying something.
I said one more. Oppressed, suppressed, and then impressed by the West.
I mean,
So,
correct.
So wo bhi hua. So lot of changes to other kind of thinking also happened. And then finally coming back again to your roots.
I think slowly we are moving towards it, very slowly. Right?
Yeah.
And one change that is very evident is from 2014 onwards. Till then, we didn't know which direction we were heading toward. There was a lot of commotion that was going on. Let's proceed further. Yeah.
So, yeah. So the United States of,
yeah.
Shall I continue?
That's right.
The United States of America was set apart by intelligences to try out self-government by the multitude. And so they have been led to success in their various wars, their political institutions, and their economic undertakings, notwithstanding the actions of the people. So it's like they are it's being controlled more by the intelligence than the actions of the people at initially.
No, see, Priyaji, one point that he makes right in the beginning is even the intelligences or even the supreme intelligence is bound by the thoughts as destiny. He cannot deviate from there.
Yes, we had discussed
right.
That.
So here he is talking about actions, not the thoughts behind them.
Yeah.
Correct. That's the point I wanted to make there. Yeah, let's proceed.
Yeah. In peace and in war, their escape from the natural consequences of their selfishness and indifference is striking. Their escape from the natural consequences.
This is the point that Sir was making. This Sir was just making a point, right? It goes to highlight that.
Yes.
But this protection and universal success, which school histories and orators seem to take as a matter of course, may not last. That's what's happening now.
Yeah.
There must be an accounting for all that these people did tolerate and do in violation of their great responsibility. The New England bigots, the Massachusetts slave traders, the Southern slave drivers, the oppressors of the Indians, that is the Red Indians, the political and other corruptionists will at some time meet and suffer at the reckoning which is sure to come. In
So at the
every
junction
life,
point of those three parameters, it is there. वो कभी ना कभी तो आने वाला है.
I mind you, this was written in 1930s. I mean 80s.
Ah.
this book,
1930s. This was
Correct.
written in 1930s. Okay.
in every life, there are numerous events which are generally regarded as accidents. Such events are, to mention a few, birth at a particular time into a certain country, race, family, and religion. Birth into favorable or unfavorable conditions. Birth into a sound or a diseased body. Birth with certain psychic tendencies and mental endowments. People's lives are largely made up of events which they cannot choose and which seem to be determined by accident. Among these opportunities offered to enter, opportunity offered, 1 minute.
Among these
It should be like offered are. Huh? Among these opportunities.
Offered to enter a trade, a business, or a vocation.
Okay. Among these
That sentence
opportunities
is correct.
offered to enter a trade, a business, or a vocation, chance acquaintances
It's
who
like
cause-
this, Riya ma'am. वहाँ पढ़ने में थोड़ा है. In every lifetime, there are
Okay, I think I
numerous
left out the
events.
R, sir.
That's what. In every lifetime, there are numerous events which are generally regarded as accidents. Such events are, to mention a few, birth at a particular time into a certain country, race, family, and religion, birth into favorable or unfavorable conditions, birth into a sound or a diseased body, birth with certain psychic tendencies and mental endowments. People's lives are largely made up of events which they cannot choose and which seem to be determined by accident.
Seem to be.
See, they cannot choose. Sir, this is contradicting to the purpose of life. No?
No, not purpose of life. It contradicts Celestine prophecy. In Celestine prophecy, you choose all these things, but not in this one. It doesn't contradict this because.
No, it's still saying seems only, sir. It's not saying it happens. It's saying seems. The word there he's used is seems.
Because we get to choose them, but it is a reflection of some of the earlier thoughts.
Yes.
That is what it will be. Because thought as karma is what it means effectively.
That's why I repeated that word seems, and which seem to be determined by accident.
Correct.
Is the last portion.
Among these are
opportunities offered to enter a trade, a business, or a vocation. Chance acquaintances who cause, prevent, or end associations in work or commerce, and conditions which lead to or hinder marriage and friendship. People, if they do not look upon events as happenings by chance, explain them as the will of God and seek consolation in their religion.
This is where the problem comes.
So in whichever the case, see, he is either blaming something outside but not inside. See, nowhere has he made a statement here that it is by virtue of our own thoughts within this person.
It's some person or some.
He will come. He will take us there, I think. I'm sure.
Yes. He will.
Section 3. Yeah, we can do it, I think.
Section 3 is very small, I think we can do.
No, we'll complete it. We'll complete
Yeah.
section 3. Do page ka hai.
Yes, yes. Yes, it's a very small section.
Okay.
Religions,
Sec-
gods, their
Section
claims.
Yeah. Section 3. Religions, gods, their claims, the need of religions, the moral code. Religions which turn around personal gods seem incompatible with the law of thought as destiny. Some of their doctrines are particularly designed to settle inquiries into the mysteries of the law by statements which must be accepted by faith and without contradiction. I'll just read that again. Some of their doctrines are particularly designed to settle inquiries into the mysteries of law by statements which must be accepted by faith and without contradiction. A
Some of
religion is
their doctrines are particularly designed to settle inquiries into mysteries of the law by into
statements which must
mysteries of the law by statements which must be accepted by faith and without contradiction.
like 10 commandments. Like
Correct, correct.
That command is very mild, but other religions also have its such
no, I just give an example.
strong, doctrines that people, even though the intelligent people, so-called educated, they question it, they're afraid to contradict.
Yes.
I used to get many years ago subscribe a magazine from Australia. This was run by a group which till today, Christians believed, okay, that the earth was flat. You won't believe it.
Oh,
In spite of all that, they won't accept that earth is, because their religion says.
Initially, when no, initially even when all the Galileo and all these people who came up with the new discoveries, when they came, they were put down because it was against the religions also, because it was saying the opposite of what was said in the religious.
They were
no,
condemned.
no. In spite of acceptance by the rest of the world, there are certain certain regions which it didn't accept. That is the point Jagdish sir is making. Probably you could call them the aborigines or whoever they are.
No, there are actually educated group of one particular
he's saying who are still
more like a cult,
just because it's part of the religion.
More a cult.
Yes, it's more of a cult, right? But it's not just see, take Descartes for example. You ever heard of Descartes, right? He tried to explain everything mathematically. He said everything is structured, philosophy is structured, etc. But even he, because of the religious, went to such an extent to explain the existence of God that is ridiculous. He's discovered explaining God because he was afraid. Though he talked about I think, therefore I am, and he wrote all of mathematics, the structure, so on and so forth. He's written a whole letter to the princess, okay, on trying to prove the existence of God. It's so ridiculous. You read the logic. In logic, we have a concept of circular reasoning. I'm not going to please read that. If you get a chance, read that. Okay. It's okay. It's so funny. And with written is all seriousness, accepted those days. Because Descartes was regarded as a mathematician and a logician. And in logic, we have in logic what is called circular reasoning. You use a premise to a conclusion, use that conclusion again as a premise.
Yeah, there's a similar story about this guy also, no? Darwin.
Yes.
But he admits it in his deathbed. About what he understood. Yeah. I think I've read what you are now telling.
But the Descartes went to about writing, explaining the existence of God is so ridiculous to anybody who knows logic.
No, that actually in Bruce Lipton, he says it is a dogma.
Yes.
See, ultimately, he puts it under the characterization of a dogma rather than a reality. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Religion, yeah.
Yes, sir. A religion is the relation between man and a god or gods, which he has helped to fashion or maintain, largely for the purpose of getting comfort and protection. The religion into which a man is born or which he accepts during life, indicates the stage of his development. The commands of the god whom he worships, the form of the worship, the punishments threatened, and the rewards promised show the particular element of nature to which his doer is attuned. Nature is the nature matter.
Just a minute, if I can digress
Yes.
a little over here. It's
Yeah.
very interesting when he talks about the punishments threatened, etc. Eric Fromm, in one of his books, speaks about how God has become patriarchal. Initially, he says love of God or mother, love, etc. And he explains because the child, as he grows up, moves away from the mother and starts looking up to the father. Father is the one who makes him obey, and he gives him when he is obedient, listens to him, and punishes when he is not. And since these people looked upon God as somebody who punishes if you don't obey, and that's how God became a patriarch.
Patriarch.
He,
It's a wonderful connotation. Yeah.
Eric Fromm has written this. Yeah.
Yeah. Nature is the nature matter in those parts of the spheres of fire, air, and water, which reach into the sphere of earth. Nature is the nature matter in those parts of the spheres of fire, air, and water, which reach into the sphere of earth.
Correct.
A part of the earth's sphere is the human physical world, in which is the visible universe, including the moon, sun, planets, and stars. Figure 1E. Should I stop or continue?
No, let's continue.
We're not going to the figure, right? A part of the human world is personalized in the organs, systems, and senses in the human body. A part of the human world is personalized in the organs, systems, and senses in the human
read
body.
this carefully. You are missing out something. Nature is the nature matter in those parts of the spheres of fire, air, water. They have passed through that, they reach the sphere of earth. A part of which earth sphere, so a part of which earth sphere, that means this has reached the earth sphere and it is also containing human physical world, in which is the invisible universe, or the visible universe, including the moon and so on. You're clear, na? This is reaching that these three spheres are now permeating this entire human earth. That is what it means. Or the human physical world. Yeah, let's proceed. A part of the
human world is personalized in the organs, systems, and senses in the human body. All
which is
these
correct.
are made.
All these elements are sitting in our human body.
Yeah, we have the different fire, air, those elements in each part. All these are made up of matter belonging to the four elements. Each of the senses is a nature unit, doing service in a human body. The four senses of seeing, hearing, tasting, and smelling are the connections which relate the doer and the human as a distinct entity to nature as a whole through its four elements. There is a constant pull on the one hand by each of the four elements of nature on its particular sense in the human body, and on the other hand, by nature on the doer through the connection of the four senses within the doer in the body.
Read the last sentence.
Yes, sir.
There is a
constant pull on the one hand by each of the four elements of nature on its particular sense in the human body, and on the other hand, by nature on the doer through the connection of the four senses within the doer in the body.
Correct. This we saw, no? That there is a constant interaction which then becomes the emissions and all that, which becomes the field of the human body.
The senses are the emissaries of nature, the messengers, agents, priests, through which nature speaks to the doer. The pull is like a call from nature to man. It is experienced as a feeling, an emotion, a sentiment. Scroll, sir. A longing. The human is overwhelmed by uncertainty and the fears of powers against which he is helpless. He responds to that call and to his wish for comfort and protection by worship. That worship must take some form. The form is the religion of the particular human. The human worships nature in terms of personality. The reason for this is that the human identifies himself with his body and so does not think of nature, power, love, or intelligence except as proceeding from a personality. Man cannot conceive of anything without identity or form. Therefore, when he wants to worship nature, he gives to nature form and identity. So he creates gods which are nature gods, magnified men and women. His religion is the tie between him and his gods. These nature gods cannot continue to exist without worship, for they need and depend on human thought for nourishment. That is why they are continually crying for and commanding worship. There are ceremonies and symbols with which they demand to be adored, and certain places, temples, and buildings for their worship. The symbols appear in ornaments on or in the very form of vestments, temples, and structures, or in dances or rites performed in these by worshippers. The symbols represent chiefly procreation, food, and punishment. Among such religious symbols are, for the male deities, the sun and the rays of the sun, fire and that which carries fire as a torch or a candle, and for the goddesses, the earth, the moon, and water. Then there are directly the generative parts of the human body and the symbols which indicate them. As for the male, the stem of a palm tree, conifers, a shaft, a pillar, a staff, an obelisk, an arrow, a lance, a sword, an erect serpent, a bull, a goat, and other animals. The female is represented by a woman holding a child and by a vessel, an ark, a grove, a door, a lozenge, a shell, a boat, a rose, a pomegranate, a cow, a cat, and similar fertile animals. The parts of man are made to appear in the conventional forms of the male triad, trefoil, and bishop's crook. Sorry, I missed the line. Appear in the conventional forms of the male triad, trefoil, and bishop's crook. And the female symbols are such things as the vesica piscis, a bowl, a goblet, or an urn. These symbols are used alone or jointly. The conventional forms appear in many combinations, generally in cross or star forms, indicating junction. Nature and the nature gods have no feeling and no desire in themselves, but they feel and desire with the human feelings and desires. They get these through human bodies. That is not to say that these gods are subservient to man or that they are powerless. They are beings of splendor and of vast power. The force of nature is behind them. They can and they do punish and reward. Their worshippers, they reward with the objects of the worship. They're as faithful to man as he is to them. They reward a man or a people as far as they can. There is a limit to their powers, but they can bestow strength and the beauty of body and health, possessions, worldly power, success in undertakings, long life, and posterity. The gods do this for as long as a man or a people are faithful in worship and obedient to their commands. However, the power of these gods is limited in a twofold way, by the worship of the people and by the boundaries set by the law of thought. Continue, sir, or you want to discuss?
No, there's not much to discuss.
Okay. None of these gods has intelligence of his own. A god is not an intelligence and has no light of an intelligence. except what he gets in the thoughts of human worship. All the intelligence a God has, he gets through doers in human bodies. Such a nature God is subject to the intelligences which rule the earth's sphere. Yet, each nature God desires to be considered by his human servitors as the supreme intelligence of the universe. It is from the doer that the God gets the idea of being worshipped as the supreme intelligence. The God desires such worship because if the doer feels so about him, it will be faithful to him. The God is what the human beings make him. They actually endow him with all their ambitions and desires, their brutality and revenge, their mercy, kindness, and love. Nature gods crave light of an intelligence. It is impossible for them to receive it except as they get control of doers in human bodies. When the doer responds to the claims of the god, light of the intelligence goes out in the doer's thought, which follows the pull of nature. Light of its intelligence furnishes the doer with the means of accomplishing the doer's worship. But the doer is not aware of this. The great effort of nature gods is to obtain the subjugation and service of human thinking. Therefore, it is represented by the priests of a religion that the thinking is inferior to belief. I didn't get this part. The great effort of nature gods is to obtain the subjugation and service of human thinking. Okay. Therefore, it is represented by the priests of a religion that the thinking is inferior to belief. Ye thoda thinking is inferior to belief.
See,
What means is if you believe, there's no need to think about, no need to apply your thinking. Your thinking here means not in that.
Okay, like if you
Just
believe
whatever
it's
the
enough,
thinking
it'll go through.
you don't have that.
no, if you believe, then there is some validity to that claim.
So believe in faith that way.
Yes,
See,
yes, you don't
yeah,
have to-
no, ye karta hai na, when they say you are injured, pray to Baba, nothing will happen. Right?
Yes.
That's a belief.
Yes.
Or you play to Lord Rama, everything will be fine. That's a belief. That belief could generate a thought, right? But that thought will be subservient to the belief. It will not go beyond that belief. And there will be the other side of it. He says, क्या मम्मी वो जाके एक मूर्ति को पूजा करोगे तो आपका काम हो जाएगा. We see that happening in our lives, right? So that is what he is trying to say. That contradiction is what he is trying to bring to light. Have I stated it correctly, sir?
Yeah, but one thing, if you want to summarize all this so far, it says just one thing. This so-called God, which has got all the power that, to the extent that I have, etc., is nothing but the human being's thought.
And his thought and his belief.
That's it. Okay. That thought creates a belief and the belief becomes subservient.
Correct. See, here you take that movie, Paresh Rawal ka, oh my God.
Oh, that's a very good film. Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
So if you take that, that will actually take us through this entire thing.
Yes.
That single thought is enough.
Yeah.
So
This
that is the
entire
point.
This entire 3 paragraphs just summarizes that. One sentence we can say.
One movie, one story.
Okay.
When the doer responds.
When the doer responds to the claims of the god, light of the intelligence goes out in the doer's thought, which follows the pull of nature. Light of its intelligence. Yeah. Sorry? You said something, sir?
No, suddenly my speaker changed.
No.
So maybe. Yeah, that's okay. Carry on.
When the doer responds to the claims of the god, light of the intelligence goes out in the doer's thought, which follows the pull of nature. Light of its intelligence furnishes the doer with the means of accomplishing the doer's worship. But the doer is not aware of this. Hey, I read this already. No, the great
Yeah,
effort
correct.
of the nature gods is to obtain the subjugation and service of human thinking. Therefore, it is represented by the priest of a religion that the thinking is inferior to belief. The believer is given to believe that feeling is superior to thinking, and that in religion, thinking should follow the promptings of feeling. The priest may say that thinking leads the soul away from the God. They say that if the soul gives up its devotion to the God, it will be led away from him and be lost to God as a soul. This is quite true. When the doer follows the light of the intelligence, it is led away from nature and from the gods it is fashioned out of nature. The nearer an embodied doer is to nature, the more quickly will that doer respond to the pull of nature by religious worship. And it is proper that such a doer should worship in this way while it is sense bound. As a doer, can we just discuss these last few lines?
It's simple. वो court scene चलता है ना? That movie OMG. Think of that court scene. What is happening in the court scene? No. What is happening in that court scene?
They're trying to see whether it's that the will of God से हुआ है क्या कैसे हुआ है.
And how does he argue? How does he counter that? He says, इसमें लिखा हुआ है, भगवद गीता में लिखा हुआ है, whatever happens, I am responsible. On the basis of which he wins the case, right?
Yeah, in all the religions, it is given like that.
That is the single point he is making here. That's what I felt.
Yes.
So did I miss anything?
No, that's correct. What he says.
Correct. So in that court scene, whatever he is representing, just imagine that. Close your eyes and imagine. Are you challenging me? He says yes, because your book only has written that.
Yes.
And that is the basis of his victory also. Yeah.
Where was I?
As a doer.
As a doer responds.
As a doer responds more to the light of its intelligence, it begins to question. The questions are about power, right and wrong, God and man, the visible and invisible, the real and the unreal. These a nature God answers through the senses. His messages are interpreted in terms of feeling and they affect the heart. I'll just read
By contrast.
By contrast, the triune self answers with the light, showing to the doer the solution by the light. At the proper time, the doer must choose between the worship of nature and that of the triune self and light. Every doer knows when that time has come. Okay, this is like following what your head has determined till now and following that.
That is
like your intuition.
Let's go back to the movie example. This is the judgment. Actually, this sentence signifies the judgment. The two arguments and the outcome is the judgment. See, read the last line, you will get to what I am trying to say.
Yes, sir.
By contrast,
the triune self answers with the light, showing
that
to
is the
doer
judgment
solution
part.
by the light. At the proper time, the doer must choose between the worship of nature and that of the triune self and light.
See,
every doer
this
knows
is
when that time has come.
Actually, if you take the movie, this is more like the scene in the hospital where this guy is supposed to have died. Paresh Rawal is on his deathbed, right? He is given away, they start opening temples and all that. That is highlighting the belief side of it. Whereas he comes and damages all that and then sets that right, correct? That is when he sees the light. Because Krishna is supposed to have brought him back to life, right? So he says, you give me that keychain, and that keychain is thrown away. Are you able to recollect what I am trying to say?
Yeah,
Entry
most
of
of
Akshay
us.
Kumar.
हाँ वो हिंदी में अक्षय कुमार, तेलुगु में और कोई है, हर लैंग्वेज में कोई ना कोई है. But basically the point is, Akshay Kumar, he says, he gives the keys, I mean, he rubs the keys on his entire body, and that fellow wakens up. He says, यहाँ पे कितने दिन से हो, and all that they talk, and then this guy throws away the key, right? That is that part, if I can relate it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now comes the actual action that he takes after that. Beautiful example from that movie, actually.
As the doer advances in development, it recedes from disbelief until it may reach through agnosticism and denial. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing it right.
Agnosticism.
Agnost.
One who
My
doesn't
tongue is
believe in
getting
God.
Yeah, but my tongue is getting twisted pronouncing it. It may reach to agnosticism and denial to disbelief in
And
God.
agnostic is doubtful person.
Yeah.
And the atheist is one who believes. Yeah.
One who will question the belief.
Yeah.
Yes. Disbelief usually comes through progress in the natural sciences and through thinking, which disprove some of the assertions of theology, discredit some of the sources of revelation, question the motives of the revealers and of the priesthood, and lead to disbelief in everything that cannot be verified by physical measurements and the reactions of science. Disbelief also comes when thinking is developed in the doer to the extent that it realizes the injustice of a God who disobeys the moral code which he proclaims for his children, and who demands that the will of God and the wrath of God and the ways of providence can be accepted as an excuse or explanation
So
of
be
his
accepted, not can be.
Okay, providence be accepted as an excuse or explanation of his iniquities.
This is the high priest. This is this guy, Paresh Rawal.
Nice analogy.
नहीं समझा?
नहीं,
you didn't follow?
Nice analogy, yes, sir.
Beautiful movie, actually. See, somebody seems to have read this book, the producer or someone, or the story writer. He has understood this chapter and converted it to a movie, if you can think of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Disbelief, however, is wrong. It is worse for one to break away from religion, deny the existence of God, and assert that death ends all, than to share the naive belief in the ways of providence and the will of God. The gods do exist, and they can furnish to the body food and things that make physical life pleasant. They are entitled to gratitude for what they give, but not to worship as the supreme intelligence.
This is the beauty. This is what reality is all about.
And actually, sir, if I go back to our example, this becomes the theme of the movie.
Yes.
He says, you believe in yourself, you are the God.
It does not deny the existence of God in that sense.
He doesn't. He says, God to tum khud ho.
But questions the supreme as a supreme. Yes.
I mean, the belief being the supreme. Yeah. Beautiful movie, actually. Now I am able to realize the meaning behind that movie also. Yeah.
The manner in which humans are taught the law of thought is the way in which they want to think or learn. That way is to let the doer, so long as it remains sense-bound, consider a personal God as its creator, a God of mercy and love, the source of power and the administrator of justice according to a moral code. Complete triune selves. There's a comma. Complete triune selves, the government of the world, provide the code of morals by influencing the human beings who develop a religion. I'll just read that. I didn't read properly. One second. Yeah. Complete triumphs, the government of the world, provide the code of morals by
Actually,
influencing.
you do one thing, Priya ma'am. Why don't you read from
Yes.
here? The manner
Yes,
in
sir.
which.
Yes, sir. Sir. The manner in which humans are taught the law of thought is the way in which they want to think or learn.
See,
That
look
way
at this beauty
is-
of this sentence, huh? The manner in which humans are taught the law of thought is the way in which they want. They are already
Want to.
acceding to that.
in which they want to think or learn.
That means
That
they are
way.
accepting it. The way is to let the doer.
That way is to let the doer, so long as it remains sense bound, consider a personal God as its creator, a God of mercy and love, the source of power and the administrator of justice according to a moral code.
Now look at
Complete
this. Priya, look at this. That way is to let the doer. But there is a caveat, huge caveat. So long as it remains bound,
sense bound. Yeah.
Consider a personal God as its creator, a God of mercy and love, the source of power and the administrator of justice according to a moral code. Somebody has defined it. It is somebody's thoughts. Realize that. Yeah.
So and it also says as so long as it remains sense bound. So when your senses are in
that means when you are living in the materialistic world.
Yeah.
Simple.
So yes. So when your senses are controlling you, then you are going along with this God that you're thinking in these terms. Correct. As creator and mercy, power and
so you are limiting yourself by that belief.
When you're not remaining sense bound, when you go beyond that, then you may not be subscribing to such a God.
No. It's not that way. See, the point is.
So what does he mean by so long as it remains sense bound?
Correct. See, because
that means, read the first sentence once again, then you have the answer. The manner in which humans are taught the law of thought. The way you are educated on the law of thought is the way in which they want to think or learn. That means submission. The submission is dictated and is valid as long as it remains sense bound. Consider a personal God as the God who is going to lead you to wherever you want to go, administer justice, etc., according to a moral code. So he is actually building a compound wall around itself. A frog in the well bana diya usko.
And that well is determined by your your senses are.
So the point is, he does not say it is wrong here, because you are at this moment controlled by the senses, and you are looking.
It's like a level, right?
But as long as this senses talks about a God, not the power that punishes you, the God of love and mercy, and he has power, because that is your limit. Your limit cannot go beyond senses. That is what the wall is.
Right? Exactly.
So there is nothing wrong in that if you believe it. And according to a moral code, please remember what is a moral code. See, moral code, there are two kinds. The moral of what is called as the ethics of authority. That is what your church, your temples, your God, your religions tell you. He is not talking about that. The other moral code is the non-code of your conscience, your senses, within the sense.
Your level of acceptance, actually.
Yes, that's what it is.
What is your level of surrender? Is it to logic or is it to this kind of a blind faith?
Exactly.
Right. Now he is bringing the other side of the story. Complete by themselves, the government of the world provide the code of morals by influencing
Exactly.
human beings who develop a religion. They are trying to influence. Now read the next line. That is the one that is making the whole thing.
Yeah.
The code is suited to the
Suited.
requirements of the people who look to their God as their creator, preserver, destroyer, and lawgiver.
Hmm.
See, the complete triumphals, etc., administer it. But look at the underlying sentence here. What does it mean? Complete triumphals से पढ़ के मेरे को समझाओ.
Complete triumph helps the government of the world provide the codes of morals, influencing the human beings who develop a religion.
Read the second
The
part.
code is this code is suited to the requirements of the people who look to their God as their creator, preserver,
Requirements
destroyer.
of
The people
who look to
to
their
their God.
God as their creator. So what is happening? The thoughts are coming from this premise.
Hmm.
See, the thoughts are actually coming. Sorry, the thoughts are actually coming from this. They supply
Hmm.
the core of moral, but this code is suited to the requirements of the people who look to their God as the creator. That means this is the thinking that is molding the code of morals.
Hmm.
Am I getting it right, sir?
Yes. So we modify that. What the trans says, we modified according to our code of thought. Our code
Exactly,
of
which
religion.
means though the code is supplied, right, we are making changes just like issuing an RFP. Right? If I am a product vendor, I will go and create the conditions of the request for quotation such that all the conditions there align to my product and
Hmm.
my that is exactly what I am doing. And in order to, that means basically the human mind is conniving with those like-minded people to issue a religious code of morals.
Morals.
Yeah.
So that
Which is what-
particular community or set of people will all follow it in the name of religion.
modify to their. That's what I was giving last time this example. If you look at Quran and the Vedic thought, both are thought about a unit power of formless power.
Correct.
But the way the followers have modified that to suit them and then created laws, which if you really look at Quran, there's very little difference between that and our.
Actually, there is no difference. You're right.
That they talk of chakras, they talk about all these things. They're called hadiths, not
Correct.
real Quran. They're called hadiths. Okay, but when you Quran, they have added certain other things which create you the existential norms, which is what we also have done. Our priests of different.
Just like what has happened to the constitution of law, sir. I mean, Indian constitution का वही हाल हुआ है ना?
Oh yeah, that's right. Same thing.
I was reading a book by Ambedkar. He said, this is the law constitution. There's one audio book that I picked up recently.
Mhm.
The true Ambedkar's constitution.
Mhm.
And if I really read, there is no reservation. He had asked the reservation only for a very, very small period of time.
Yes, you're right.
Very short period so that inequality is eliminated.
Correct.
But then we made that the equality. Right. Yeah. Yeah, Priya ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I think we have exactly very little. ये एक पैरा बचा है.
हाँ.
Without religions,
Without religions, the doers and human beings would have nothing to hold them in check.
That's
Each feels the presence of his triune self, but in their sensuous stages, people do not sense its qualities and power. And in their ignorance, they seek in nature for their God. The threatenings of a God cause fear. The human fears that he is not immortal. He fears the wrath of his God. He senses that he does wrong and that he cannot help but do wrong when temptation beckons. These conditions of the human are permitted by the triune selves to impress a moral code upon him. The gods are quite willing to pose as the lawgivers and dictators. Human priests are ready to take advantage of the ignorance and fear of the human beings. So the moral code given by the triune selves is used at the same time by nature gods and their priests to maintain themselves and to keep the doers and human beings in dependence. The teaching of the wrath of God and the doctrine of original sin are illustrative of this. Yet, these doctrines have a meaning.
See, nowhere is he saying that it doesn't have a meaning. Just see how people have misused that. For example, see, today I was reading one book on Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha by Devdutt. It's a beautiful book, sir. I posted the audio and PDF both.
I saw that, yes.
Right? There he explains, when it came to Artha and Kama, Kama is not sex. Kama, 20% of it is sex. But 80% of it is the value of love. Right? Now, see, there he talks about the value of this, what you call, he talks about the value that was actually given to the ladies who were dancers. Right? And how people changed it to their selfish motive, and those independent people were regarded as prostitutes at the end of the day.
Yes.
The Devdasis thing you're saying, sir?
Yeah.
Devdas, yes.
Hello? Morning. Right. So, look at the beauty. That this is precisely a manifestation in practice seen in that book. See, he says those people who were the courtesans were actually people who were highly talented and highly independent. Okay, they were poets. They were highly accomplished people with an independent mind of their own. All those were suppressed by the so-called priests in some of the regions, utilizing this concept of the books, etc. That is the conclusion I could come to as I was listening. How true and well, this synchronicity is nowadays killing me actually. See, that book, someone asked whether I have it. I thought I had it and I landed up getting it because I am a subscriber. I have some points and all that. I read that and I now get the same topic here.
Right. Synchronicity, no doubt.
Too much. But I think all in all, the best way to understand this chapter 3, the section 3 appears to be, oh my God.
Oh my God. Okay.